Hey guys, today I wanted to quickly go through what goes through your mind when you try to do a blindfold solve. If you like this clip, and if you want, I'll make a complete series on how to learn how to make a how to solve blindfolded, and I will break it down into very easy steps. There are some really good tutorials out there nowadays, especially NaaH-AlL's tutorials, NaaH cubes, which is where I learned how to solve blindfolded. For me it took about 6 days, but to be honest, I think you could learn it even faster if you wanted to. I spent about maybe 1.5 hour per day during those 6 days, and yeah, it's actually not that difficult. I would compare it to maybe the first time you try to learn CFOP. I wouldn't recommend trying to learn blindfold unless you can at least solve the cube using F2L and you have solved the cube for a while. You're not going to be using any of those techniques, and it's very possible to actually learn blindfold solve even if you don't even know how to solve the cube normally. But I'd recommend being at least slightly familiar with the cube, because it will just make it a whole lot easier. But during this clip I'll only go through basically what goes through your mind when you try to do a blindfolded solve, and I'll show you the steps you have to learn. I like seeing this as steps. Like if you think of the beginner tutorial, like the beginner method, you would usually see it like first you have to make a cross, then you have to put in the corners, then you have to put in the edges, then you have to orient the edges of the last layer, then orient the corners, then permute the corners, and then permute the edges. That's how most people learn, at least. Blindfolded solving also goes through these steps, and I would point out these steps to first of all you have to find your letters, and then you have to remember those letters, and then you have to execute, like you split it up into corners and into edges, and then first you would memorize for example the corners and then the edges. That's the way I do it, and then you would execute the edges and then execute the corners. But let's go through what happens. The first step is that when you start learning blindfold solving, you would name each sticker. So let's take this cube, for example. Sorry if the lighting is bad, but you would name each sticker of this cube. And the way I named them was using the SPEF's lettering scheme. I'll go over how that looks. Basically it looks something like this. So you would name each piece. I'm not actually sure if you can see my mouse pointer, but you would name each piece. So basically you would name, you would go through clockwise, and you would do something like name this piece A, and also this edge could be named A. Like yeah, the way SPEFs works is you name you name the first 2 pieces A, and then the next 2 pieces B, and so on and so forth. And this is all the first step. Sorry, I'm rambling right now, but the first step would be choosing your orientation. My orientation is with white up and green facing me. So every time I do a blindfolded solve, this is the orientation I will be holding the cube. I will be having green facing me and white on top all the time. So the naming process, it goes through like this. You go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and then on the back over here M, N, O, P, etc, etc, etc. And basically I thought this would be a really hard step for me to learn all of these letters, but it was actually, it only took me about a day. And the cool shortcut here is to just learn the first letter of each face. So A, E, whoa, sorry about that. A, E, I, M, Q, U. And then whenever you find a piece, if you know your cube well enough, you should know where that piece belongs, at least if you think about it for a little while. And then as soon as you got the space, you can just point to that space with your finger, and then you can start counting from the top of that face. So for example, let's say my cube is completely scrambled and I find the green, orange, yellow piece, and I find the green face of it. So I would just put my finger over here, and then I would think, okay, the green face, oh, that starts with an I. So then I would go I, J, K, L. Okay, it's the L corner. And it may sound really, really complex, but it actually isn't all that hard, and very soon you'll have this, it will go pretty automatical. Like you'll just see a piece and you will instantly know the letter, and if you don't, you will be able to find it really fast. So this is the first trick to being able to solve it blindfold. So once you have a scrambled up cube, like this cube, whoa, my camera is not responding for some reason. There we go. So once you have a scrambled up cube like this, I'm really sorry about the light, you would go through and you would find each piece. I won't go into exactly how the method works. I'll do that in future tutorials if you guys are interested, or you can just watch NaaH cubes, which have really good tutorials. But the step would be, you always have a buffer piece. What that means is basically you will be switching one piece at a time, back and forth, and you will just, doing that will allow you to solve the whole cube one piece at a time. And basically all you have to do is you would have a buffer piece and a target piece, and you would move your pieces into the target spot, switch them with a buffer, undo your setup moves and move the next piece to the target spot, switch it with a buffer, and then move it back. So all you have to do is actually remember like a string of letters. So let me just show you how this works. I've already pre-memorized this cube, but I'll go over it anyways. So the first thing I would do is look at this sticker, and I see it's the red, blue, white. So I know it belongs over here. Oh, actually it belongs over here, sorry, because it's the red sticker. So on a solved cube, if we look at this solved cube, we see that the piece, this red sticker, is the red of the white, blue, red corner, and the red sticker belongs over here. So that's this piece. So then we go through, okay, we know our lettering scheme, so we know that, okay, this is the A, E, I, M, so we know, okay, it's M, N, O, P. So we know this is the N. So we just start by remembering N, and then we look at this sticker. Oh, this is the white of the red, green, and white corner. So I know it belongs over here. It's the white of the white, red, green. So it belongs over here. And that would be the C. A, B, C. So this is the C sticker. So now I know my first two letters are N, C. And then you just go through and you track all of these corners. And then you get a string of letters. Basically for this exact scramble, those letters would be N, C, S, P. So I'll just trace them with my fingers. Yes, you can see N, C, S, over in the back, S, P, O, K, L, and then U, D, and then F. So now I have these 10 letters that I have to remember. So since I want to perform my corners last, I need these to stick in my mind. So what I do is I create an image or a series of images. Basically, you make up a short little animation in your head. And I've also pre-made the animation that I would use for this. Actually, it's slightly modified because my way of memorizing, I like to switch in between all of the 3 languages that I know. I know Swedish, English, and some Spanish. So the way I love to remember this is in letter pairs. Doing it in pairs helps you a whole lot, and I'll explain why in a future tutorial. But it basically makes it really easy to keep track if you're on an even number or uneven number. So it's always good to remember in pairs, and I prefer to remember it so that the first letter is the first letter of the word and the last letter is the last letter of the word. Sometimes that's not always possible, so then you have to improvise. I'll show you guys first off my memorization for this cube. It looks something like this. I'm not sure if you can see that well. I'll actually change the size of this so it's a little bit more visible. So there we go. Basically, this is my corner memo, and these are the words that I made from it. So I can see that nuclear would be my word for the NC pair. Stop, really easy for SP. OK is just OK, but here I'm starting to improvise a little bit because I want to make a good picture out of this. So that's why I have this question mark, exclamation mark. And then this life units, it's the best I could make up from LU, and DF is one that I use very often, and I have the word def for it. So then I start making a mental image or animation from this. And this is my best attempt at trying to paint this this little image that I made. But basically it would start off with just a huge nuclear blast. It would start off with this huge nuclear blast just going off, and I would just remember this sequence as nuclear, and then these small protesters would come, like a huge crowd protesting, and they would be stop, and it would be like nuclear stop, and then they go okay, question mark, exclamation mark. I'm trying to make this image as vivid as possible, so this paint illustration doesn't really do it justice, but basically it's a huge nuclear blast going off, and then these protesters come and they're like stop, okay, and they're like really frustrated, lots of emotions. It's really good to try and make this image as strong as possible. And then after that there's this little guy, and all of a sudden this realistic like picture, in my head it's pretty realistic and these protesters are pretty realistic, but all of a sudden it turns into kind of a video game, and this guy has this huge life bar over his head, and this life bar is called, well, for me I would remember this one as the life units, because the life units start going down. So the radiation from this huge nuclear blast would cause like his life units to just go down. And once they're all the way down, what happened was that this guy just turned deaf. So his small little ear here would just become deaf, and he would be like, what the fuck? So yeah, I made like a funny little animation in my head, and this whole thing, like it with some practice you can make these things up pretty fast, and then you just keep repeating this whole sequence in your head, and you keep remembering, okay, nuclear, that's NC, okay, stop, that's SP, okay. So it will be nuclear, stop, okay. And then this guy's life units would go down all the way until he's deaf. So that would be my corner memorization. And for actually executing this, it's really, really easy. To execute this on a cube, let me try and go back to the camera. Basically, all you have to remember was the steps that I showed you earlier on about how, I'm not sure why my camera is being so wonky. Doesn't really want to switch back. But yeah, basically, all you have to do is move a piece to this location. This is the target location. Then perform one algorithm. I use the Y-perm, a version of the Y-perm, and it will switch these two, and then I just move it back. So let's start with the first. It was N. I know that N is over here, so I would just move the N sticker here in as few moves as I can. And with the N, I know that it's pretty easy because all I have to do is turn this face twice. And the sticker would end up here. Then I would perform the Y-perm, or the modified version of the Y-perm. And once I'm done, I would undo this. So I would remember that N needs to go back over here. And it solved this piece. So the next step would be the C. So C is over here, so it's quite easy as well to bring down to the target spot. It's just one F. And then I perform the algorithm again. And then undo. And that solved this piece. So now we have these two solved pieces. Basically, you keep doing this for all of your corners. The next one for me was S. So I would do something like this for S. Now I actually just confused myself. S, then P, and then O, and then K. K is a little bit more complex to get there. It requires 2 moves. Actually, yeah, something like that. K, L. I'm still not that good at this. Like, you can definitely become better at this. U, D. No, sorry. D and then F. And that should have solved all my corners. So, there we go. All of these corners are now solved. So that's the basic principle of how blindfold solving goes. For my edges, I would just remember them as a long string of letters. For me, it's the easiest way, because I just blast through them really fast using the method called M2. I'll explain this as well in a future tutorial. But basically, if you can remember 10 letters, and you don't have to remember 10 letters, like using this memorization technique with making this long image, I believe I actually believe anyone could learn to do a blindfold solve. So I encourage you guys to really give it a try. And if you want me to break it down even further, like I can go through how you can learn this really, really easily. I believe that the best way to get started with this is actually to start off with a 2x2. The technique is the exact same way. The only algorithm you'll have to know is the Y-perm. If you know the Y-perm, that's fine, that's all you'll ever need. I recommend that if you're planning on using the SPEF's lettering scheme, the one that I showed you, where you go through each phase, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, etc. For the 2x2, use the 3x3 letters. So you would start with A. Actually, actually you would have the same letters, so that would be fine. Just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, then go back, U, V, Q, V, W, X. And then once you know this, you can quite easily solve the 2x2. Once you're feeling comfortable with that, like, that can be pretty fun practice. And pretty soon you'll be very comfortable with solving the 2x2 blindfolded, and you'll also have learned how to solve all of the corners of the 3x3, and then you can go into the next step. And for a couple of days or whatever, however long you need, just solve the edges. Start with just remembering the edges and just solving the edges, and then in the end you combine both of them and you solve the whole cube. That would be the easiest breakdown, I believe, for learning it, and it's the way that I did it. Another great help is to try and keep as little in your head as possible. Basically, first off, just learn how to execute. Learn to execute the method and solve the cube while watching it using this type of method. After you're familiar with how the setup moves work and you start understanding how the method works, then just start with one step at a time and use a paper or notepad or whatever, and while you're tracing your scrambled pieces, looking for the next one, type down the letters and don't worry too much about words. Just type down each letter, go through, find each sticker and where it belongs, find that sticker, etc., etc., until you're done with your whole string of letters, and then start making up words, and then start memorizing, and then perform them one step at a time. And it's fine to do this while watching the cube. Like, it's not gonna be any difference watching the cube or not. It's only going to help you see if you're making any mistakes with your setup moves, or if you're screwing up an algorithm or whatever, and it's gonna save you a lot of hassle. Another good trick is to use a predefined scramble instead of hand scrambling, so you can do the same scramble over and over again. That really helps. So yeah, I really hope you guys got a little bit more curious about blind solving, and that you're gonna give it a shot. So feel free to leave any comments, and if you want me to do more episodes, maybe go into more detail how the method works and some good tricks for it, please let me know in the comment section.